Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Spouse Link live stream. I am so excited for you to join me here today. So, there is something called the deadly gap. It's that 12-month time frame between leaving active duty military service and being able to feel integrated, accepted, and connected within your new community. The perceived losses that a military family can face leads to higher rates of depression and suicide among new veteran families. So, having the proper support through the deadly gap is critical to the successful transition and retirement of service members and their families. The ETS sponsorship program, which is the program we're going to be talking about today, is a new initiative and a public-private partnership with the Department of Veteran Affairs. It is uniquely designed to support military families that are transitioning through that deadly gap time period. So today we're going to talk about how you and your family can participate and receive the benefits and support the program. I've got a guest coming on today, Executive Director of the program, Mike Eastman, who's going to talk about the implementation and what kind of benefits you're going to see from it. I just want to thank you for joining me today. I'm Anna Larson. I'm a Spouse Link ambassador. My day job, I'm a copywriter and a digital marketer and a website designer. I'm a homeschool mom, and I'm also a retired military spouse, 22 years. These live streams are for military spouses and their families who are looking for connection and support as they near and cross over into the transition or retirement from active duty military world. Spouse Link is supporting these live streams. It was created in 2012 by AFMA, the American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association, to support, inform, and inspire military spouses around the world. As we dive into today's topic, I would love for you to leave comments, share your experiences in the comments section, and just generally engage with us. We want to know where you're joining us from. We want to know what you're doing. We want to know how your experience has been and whether or not you see value and opportunity in the programs that we share. So I encourage you to go ahead and engage and interact with our guests and community. And I want you to know that I value what you're saying and I am listening to what you are putting down in those comments. So without further conversation, I want to bring up the bio of our guest. And I want to tell you a little bit about Mike Eastman, who is the Executive Director of the ETS Sponsorship Program. So Brigadier General retired Mike Eastman is the Executive Director of the ETS Sponsorship Program. He most recently served as the Commanding General of Train, Advise, Assist Command South in Kandahar, Afghanistan, where he advised the political and military leaders of 6 provinces, ran an international airport, and transferred the country's largest coalition base with millions of pieces of equipment and extensive real property back to the Afghans. Mike holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from the United States Military Academy at West Point, a master's degree in military science from the Command and General Staff College, and a master's degree and PhD in political science from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He served as a senior fellow at the Institute of World Politics, and his articles have appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Interagency Journal, and Parameters. So I am super excited to bring on Mike Eastman. Hi.
Hey, Anna.
Welcome to today's live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm very excited to have you on and have a conversation about the ETS sponsorship program.
Well, no, thanks for having me. Any opportunity I have to get the word out about the program and talk to folks and answer their questions, I'm super excited.
Yeah. So the ETS sponsorship program, we talked a little bit, or I should say, I talked a little bit in the very beginning about the deadly gap, right? And the ETS sponsorship program was designed to fill the deadly gap. So can you tell us just a little bit more about what that is and why it's such a critical time for veterans and their families?
Sure. So, the deadly gap is sort of an academic term that's come out of the community that is just really trying to recognize that the 12 months from the day you take that uniform off till the day most new veterans feel pretty comfortable about their new life, their new identity, they have a job, they have a house, is a really high risk period. Unfortunately, the statistics are telling us that we are losing new veterans to suicide during this 12-month period. at rates that are just wildly unacceptable. 2 to 3 times higher than their peers of the same age in the community that don't have that military experience. So that's really what we're focused on. Let's just get folks enough support and enough help to be the great citizens that they all want to be in this period of time when we know they're at risk.
Yeah. And it's when you say 2 to 3 times, I mean, I was looking at some recent numbers and it's significantly high, that suicide risk. We had a guest on a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Quinn Galloway Salazar, who specializes in suicidology and PTSD. And the numbers she gave and just that conversation was a little staggering. And it is a reality. It's something that we think happens to other people or other families. And I think it's really important that we have these conversations and just discuss it. It may not, when that transition happens, it is such a massive change for a military family, and not for the veteran, yes, but also the spouse and the children, that there really has to be a watchful eye kept on that deadly gap time period, like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, and when I talk to folks, particularly folks that don't necessarily have a military background, one of the things I try and point out is, that it's more than just I'm changing my employment.
Mhm.
It's so there's a military component to it for sure, right? All of us that have served are used to being a part of a team. You have an identity, you have a mission or a higher purpose that you think you are contributing to as part of your organization. So you're walking away from all of that, whether it's through retirement or through separation, and doing so honorably, right? These things happen, but at the same time, you are looking at relocating yourself and your family somewhere else. So you're having a new home. Your children potentially being uprooted from school again. Your spouse, if he or she works, having to potentially relocate and find a new job. You're losing your service provided life insurance. You're having to change your medical care. There is a lot converging on a service member at this particular point in time, just independent of the military service. But when you throw that on top, it can be overwhelming. And frankly, I don't think that we're doing the best job preparing folks to step into this sort of stream of activity that they're going to find themselves and their families in.
Yeah, that's a perfect lead in to talk a little bit about the ETS sponsorship program and what you do. So, can you just tell everybody, like, give us a brief explanation? What is the ETS sponsorship program?
Yeah, so the ETS sponsorship program is a 501c4 nonprofit social welfare organization. We're in a public-private partnership with the VA, and we are born out of really 6 years of smaller efforts to try and address this deadly gap problem. But now, as a program, we're expanding nationwide to offer our services to service members from all of the armed forces to wherever they're going in the country. And we're really trying to empower not only the service member and their family, but the community they're going to, so that there's a positive reception. And the service member, their family has the right information. They have enough time to process it and make good decisions. We match them with a sponsor to walk this journey with them. And then we inform the community they're going to well in advance that this family is coming. This is what they said they need, their goals, their aspirations are. And you can take what is, unfortunately, in many cases for veterans, a crisis response and turn it into a positive reception that sets people off on the right foot.
I love that terminology that you're using. The switch of mindset from crisis response to positive reception, I think, is a huge benefit for transitioning families. One of my common themes in these live streams is I thought I was very prepared for transition. I thought it would be easier than it was, and it slammed me pretty hard. And it was a lot more difficult than I realized it was going to be, both uh, in the sense of all the things that we had to do, but also emotionally. And I spent so much of my time making sure my service member was okay, that I had kind of left myself and my children out of the mix until we were in a little bit of a crisis response. So I really see some benefit in, like, being able to connect with people in the community you're going to be going to and having that assistance, like real assistance, not the namesay assistance of, yeah, reach out to this person. They can tell you everything you need to know. And then, and it's not really like that connection that you really, really need when you're going through transition. So, okay, so tell us a little bit. We talked about what it is, but what benefits really, like if you dig down, what are the benefits that the service members and their families are seeing when they enroll in your program?
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to say there are a bunch. I'll give you the top couple
Okay.
three maybe. First, and you've already touched on it, it is a connection with a sponsor from the community you're going to. And that's deliberate. And I can take no credit for this idea. This is really born out of conversations that my own family had, and many of our team's families had when they went through this process. The questions that came up at our dining room table were not answerable in a formal federal program.
Mm.
No one ever sat me down and said, what side of town is the best real estate market? What schools should the kids go to? I couldn't sit in a room and ask, hey, does my wife's credentials that she just spent 2 years getting for Virginia transfer to Oklahoma? And I think so that's no benefit number one. You're getting a trained sponsor that lives in your community. They can answer that for you and can give you on the ground truth. So I would say that's the first one. The second benefit is we're connecting with folks up to a year before they leave the military, which is a very deliberate decision, because I think establishing a human relationship with a sponsor, absorbing the massive amounts of information it takes, and then giving yourself time to think through that is more than normally is allocated in the process.
Yeah.
Folks in uniform right now, they go to a TAP class. They're usually 90 days out. They get a binder full of information, and it is just impossible. You've already missed the window on half that stuff, right? I mean, this is stuff you should have, could have done.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's just get in front of that, right? They're all smart people, but we're not giving them time. We're setting them up for failure. And I would say that the sort of the third benefit that I hope folks get out of this, my frustration, many folks' frustration when you go through transition, is people are very happy to point you to a website with 100 different links for anything you could possibly want. And it's usually alphabetical, and you usually have no sense if they're good, bad, or indifferent. We go out of our way to pick community partners that are proven, so that we're trying to do the work for you. If you're going to community X and you say you want help in benefit Y, we're not going to partner with someone if we haven't vetted them, checked them out, talked to the local community partners that work in this space. So we're trying to clear some of that clutter for folks. I think that'd probably be the top three.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really interesting to me, because what you're talking about here is your program is making these connections in advance so that when the service member arrives in that location, there's real actual support that's there. So are you like, there are so many locations a service member and their family could move to. Like how are you going into these communities? How are you reaching out? What's your structure as far as like being able to, I guess, support the massive amount of geographical locations we're talking about?
Yeah, no, and it's no easy challenge. I mean, that's fair enough, right? We have service members right now going to all 50 states. Over the past, so I joined the program, and we built the core team at the national program level to make this a national footprint. We started with community partners in New York. We've grown out of that space. Right now, we have physical community partners in 11 states.
That's great.
That are ready to receive. And that's, 6 months of work, but we have work to do. And then we have a core national team and sponsors in all 50 states. So if you are going to, say, Montana, where I don't have a physical footprint right now, we have sponsors there. We'll manage referrals for you at the national level, and you'll still have a sponsor. It's just we're going to have to grow the community affiliates so that there is a local sort of intermediary between us and them. Because quite honestly, I'm under no illusion that I can manage community services at a national level. It isn't going to happen.
Right.
But we're careful too. It takes time.
Yeah.
Folks want to join us because they recognize the power of attaching to service members and attracting them to their community. There's plenty of benefits to that. But we're very, very deliberate about who we partner with so that we can ensure we're setting folks up for success and not for less than that. I don't want any predatory anything like that going on.
Yeah.
There's enough of that out there.
There absolutely is. And I really appreciate what you're saying here, that even if a service member is moving and their family are moving to an area where you don't have like a footprint in that community specifically, that on the national side, they still have opportunity and options. So it's not a waste of time to say, they have nothing in Montana, I might as well not sign up. You actually are still going to be getting the benefit of the program, and have people that are seriously invested in your welfare during that 12-month time or 2-year time frame, I guess, if you really look at it as connecting with them a year in advance of transition, right? I love that. Okay, so let's talk specifically, like a lot of what we've been discussing, really focuses on the service member and what the service member is doing. So tell me a little bit about how the ETS sponsorship program is supporting the spouses and the children. Because let's be honest, every PCS move, they have that sponsorship program within the active duty component. It's me talking to another spouse or on Facebook or in, spouse groups on Facebook, and my service member is just trying to figure out his new job and get acclimated and all of that kind of thing. So talk to me a little bit about how your program is supporting the spouses and children.
Yeah, and I think, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's a really important point, because no service member transitions alone, right? And unfortunately, we tend to treat it that way. We tend to presume that if the service member is in a room getting information, all of that's going to the spouse. My wife will tell you that is wildly inaccurate.
I will second that.
Right? And B, again, for better or for worse, when a service member takes off the uniform, they are going through individually a certain amount of stress just through the loss of identity and things like that. Their family is going through that exact same thing. But our experience is the service member tends to vent that on the family. Like they don't have enough going on. Right. But now my wife is trying to, Mike, it'll be okay. You're going to find a job. Don't worry about this. Right. And we just don't think that's right. Right. This is a package deal. So what do? We're not perfect. We have a lot of work to do here for sure. When we enroll service members, a series of the things we ask them about are directly related to families. So first of all, we ask for contact information from the spouse, so that we can reach out to them directly and make sure they're getting information. Point one. Second, what are your family concerns? We have categories. Are you in your new community? Is your spouse looking to work? Are you looking for childcare? Do you need transportation? What are your interests? We're capturing all that so that we can forward that to the community. And they are aware of it. This is not simply Mike is showing up in 6 months with a family. This is, Mike is showing up. He has a special needs son or daughter. We want you to be aware of that so that they can have a continuity of care if needed in the new community. And then we're trying our very best to make the opportunities in our partnerships accessible to both the service member and the spouse. So for instance, we have a great relationship with the University of Texas. Credentialing opportunities, doesn't cost a thing, done remotely. They have been very happy to set aside some number of those for spouses so that if the service member and the spouse both want to go get a PMP in the 6 months before they leave, they can do that. And then the sort of the next level to that is we have a relationship also with sort of the UT community for the Veteran Spouse Network, so that we have built in, if you want it, if a spouse wants it, there is a way to connect with other spouses that have either going through this or have gone through it, separate from the sponsor, just because, they may not connect. The sponsor and the service member may connect well, but that may not be who the spouse wants to talk to. They might want to have a different perspective. So we've built that in too. We've got a lot of work to do for sure, but rest assured, my wife will never lose the opportunity to tell me that I didn't do this myself and she did the bulk of the heavy lifting.
I only laugh because it's such a familiar conversation that I've had with so many spouses going through the transition program and the one that I tell myself, right? But I will say, like, what you're saying right now, it's really impressive because your program hasn't been around very long. I mean, you're in its first year, correct? I mean, that is so, like, within the first year, the fact that you've got at least a community, a partnership of some sort within every 50 state is really kind of a big deal. And I love that you're working so hard to develop those community relations, and then that you have something specific for the spouse, and that you're asking those questions about the spouses and the children that need to be answered as well, because it really is a family event, and the loss of identity and loss of community is happening just as much, like you said, to the spouses and the children as it is to the service member. So, okay, so I have here, I'm going to bring this up. Nope, not that. That's not what I'm going to be bringing up. That is going to go over here. I'm going to be bringing this up. This is your website for the ETS sponsorship program. And I just wanted to bring this up in terms of, like, I wanted you to just give everybody kind of the heads up on how do they sign up for the program? What do they do once they get here? What is it that what do they do? They get to your site, and then, I mean, for me, it's very clear there's two giant buttons on the top, right? But I'm going to let you talk them through this.
Yeah, no, we try to make, and look, and this is probably version 4 or 5, right? Because I'm trying to make it as clear as I possibly can, and sometimes still it's confusing. What we're asking folks to do, the service member or the sponsor, you go to the website, you click the button. The first thing you're going to get is, a series of consent forms, because we want it to be very clear to everyone up front that I will not sell your information. You're not going to get an ad. You're not going to get a spam. You're not going to get any email from me. Your information is yours, and I need you to allow me to share that if you're a sponsor with your service member, if you're a service member with your sponsor. And then you go through a series of questions. The ones with the little red tickers on them are required. The others are totally at your option. And we're starting with the basics, right? Who are you? Where do you live? How do we contact you? And then, do you know where you're going? And then we start working into your interests. And those are all optional. Some folks fill them all out. Some folks fill none out. Up to them. The more you tell us, the more we can help you. But we're trying to cover all the social determinants of health. That will be the term, right? So that a successful transition, to me, means you have stable housing, you have stable employment, your family's taken care of, and your social needs are met, whether that's medical care, life insurance, or simply your interests. Do you want to connect with this type of church group or this type of gym or what have you? You'll fill all those things out as a service member, and then that will generate an action plan that will allow you to track your progress as you achieve those with your sponsor. That's it. You can do that on the website. You can do that on the mobile. We have a mobile app as well that's available. And all this is free. It costs nothing. If you want to sign up as a sponsor, it's a very similar process, far fewer questions. Just simply, allowing us to have enough information to know you. We do have to do some sort of preliminary background checks to make sure our sponsors are all, in good standing.
Yeah.
And then the sponsor is a little bit different. The sponsors will immediately get an email from us, a welcome email, and a series of classes and times where they can sign up for. And it's truly based on their experience. If you're already a peer mentor or a social worker or what have you, we just give a 2-hour block. This is our system. This is how you interact with it, and you're off to the races. If you are on the other end of the spectrum, just a great American that wants to help but has no experience with veterans, no experience with the transition space, then we have a series of virtual classes or in-person classes that happen over 3 consecutive weeks. A lot of role play, a little bit of suicide awareness, and then once you complete that, you'll go into a pool. And if we have someone coming to your area, we'll call you and say, "Would you like to sponsor this person?" If it's yes, off we go. If it's "I'm on vacation now," perfect. We'll just go to the next name on the list and keep you on the hopper.
Yeah. So I will tell everyone that's listening here right now, I did sign up on the sponsor side. So I am in the very initial stages of kind of becoming a sponsor, and I'm excited about it because I do see a lot of value in what you're doing here. And being a retired military spouse, I feel like I can support another family in a very positive way. So I am excited about that. So we have a question from our listening audience. For very large locations, is this also pinpoint so that they have an information and sponsor knowledge that's relevant? So you're looking at a large metro area, let's say.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We do the best that we can. And certainly, I rely a lot on my community partners because they know their sponsor core. So, great example. Right now, we have a great relationship with LA County, which is like a bazillion people. When a service member says they're going to LA, their inputs into the enrollment form goes to our community partner in LA. And they're going through those before a sponsor is even assigned and saying, you know what, this set of needs, these set of interests go best with Susan, not with Joe.
Mm.
And I'm relying on it because, again, like all things, nothing can be done federally that should be done locally. And so I'm trying to empower our community partners to make the best possible matches. And we have an escape clause, right? If you discover that the sponsor that has been assigned to you either isn't got all the relevant information you need based on exactly where you want to live, or you've decided that geographic information is less important than, say, I want someone that's a teacher in this area or works in the financial sector, we can pair you up with them instead. It's really, there's no one answer. We're just trying to make sure that the best match can be made based on the service member and their family's needs and interests.
Mm.
And I'll throw one caveat on. You don't have to be a veteran to be a sponsor.
Yeah.
Probably 30% of our sponsors right now have no experience with the military. But what they do know is their community, and they know the information that matters to a person that's going to live there.
Yeah.
So that's really all we're looking for.
So I'm just going to also just throw out there right now for anyone that's listening, if this is something that you think is something that you could do to help support, or your family members, or your friends that are back in your hometown, like I would highly encourage you. I'm going to encourage you to send this information to them and just ask them if would be something they do. This is not a full-time job. You might get called, every year one time or something like that. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how many veterans and families are moving to your location, would be, and what your specific skill set is. But there's a real need out there. And I love that civilian people are seeing the value of what you're doing, and they're signing up to be a support network. So, and I think that's a great bridge, right? We always talk about bridging that military civilian gap. This is doing that right now. So, okay. So, Mike, I really appreciate everything you've shared today. We're kind of at the end of our conversation about the ETS sponsorship program and what it does for transitioning and retiring military families. I want to make sure everyone knows how to find you, how to find the ETS sponsorship program. So, I'm going to pull this up, and can you give us just run through all the different ways and the best ways for somebody to find you?
Sure. No, I'm happy to. We're trying to have a social media presence anywhere you could possibly want to go, and they're all fairly consistent with the ETS sponsorship program. First of all, folks can always talk to me. I have a really clever email. It's just mike@etssponsorship.com. And I'll answer those. But the website is great. We have a good LinkedIn presence as well. We'll take comments there. The mobile app that I mentioned, I probably should have put that on there. That's in the Google Play. It's in the Play Store and the App Store as well. It's all free for download. And we're happy to take any questions through any one of these platforms. We monitor them all as best we can.
Yeah. And I'll go ahead, and you'll see if you're following me, or if you're a connection with me on LinkedIn, I will do kind of a recap of what we've discussed here today, including all these links and all the different ways. And we can throw that mobile app on there as well, Mike, so that anyone that's listening or that sees this can go and find that information. Absolutely. All right. So I just want to thank you again so much for joining us Here, let me pull this down while I do this so that it looks like I'm actually talking to you and not our slide. But thank you so much for joining us today on this Spouse Link live stream. We started this website, or this web series, I should say, because like your spouse, when you retired, I found that there was nobody to ask questions to, the kinds of questions I needed answers to, and I didn't know where to go, who to turn to. I knew there were a million resources out there, just not where to find them. And so we really appreciate you, first of all, filling a need for that deadly gap time frame that we're talking about, and really addressing that very scary time frame of change and loss of identity for the entire military family, but also for creating this program that my fingers are crossed. I've got great anticipation that it's going to go very well, that it's just going to explode. It's going to become a fantastic answer for a lot of service members and their family. So thank you so much for joining us. And if you had one word of advice for a transitioning family, what would it be?
Oh, just one word. I would
or
say
one sentence.
start early and involve your family.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I would second that. All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We will see you at the next Spouse Link live stream.